So to form an usted and ustedes commands, we're going to follow 3 steps. Our first step is get the yo, and it needs to be the yo in the present tense. Then we drop the o, and then we add the endings. These are the same steps that we use when we are forming a verb in the present subjunctive. So the endings that we use when we form an usted command, we add e to AR verbs, and we add a to ER and IR verbs. To form ustedes commands, we add en to AR verbs and an to ER and IR verbs. We have 2 different ways that we can form nosotros commands in Spanish. They're equally correct. We just use one with positive commands and one with negative commands. So our first option is to use the present subjunctive nosotros form. For example, no tomemos el tren. So we're going to use this with our negative commands, telling somebody we're not going to do this. We can also use vamos a plus an infinitive. So we could say vamos al centro. And we're going to use this with affirmative commands to say let's do this. So kind of to highlight what I was just talking about, when we're forming nosotros commands in Spanish, we can never use no vamos a plus an infinitive as a command. That's just going to be a declaration, a statement. We always have to use the present subjunctive of the nosotros form to make a negative command in the nosotros form. And we use vamos instead of vayamos when we want to say let's go, because it's something we're doing right now. There's no doubt or anything like that. So we can't use the subjunctive. So again, 2 examples of this would be vamos al centro, let's go downtown, and no vayamos al cine, let's not go to the movies. So when we want to attach a pronoun to our affirmative or positive nosotros commands, there's a couple of things that we have to do. So once we have our command form, we're going to drop the final S if we're adding nos or if we're adding the indirect object say to the command form. Remember that say is considered an indirect object pronoun when we change lay or lace because it comes before lo, la, los, or las. So for example, if I have the command lavemos and I want to add nos, I'm going to drop the S at the end of lavemos and I'm going to add nos and I get lavémonos. And I add my accent on that 3rd vowel from the end. An example of when we would use So to and vosotros commands are the only commands in Spanish that have a different positive and negative form. For our other commands, usted, ustedes, and nosotros, you just have to put no in front of the positive command. We're only going to be working with the 2 commands because the vosotros is a command form that you're not going to need to use for the exam, and it's only used in Spain. So to form the affirmative 2 commands, you just use the usted, el, and ella form of the verb in the present tense. And you keep any stem changers that would happen in the usted, el, and ella form in the command form. So for example, servir, the command form is sirve. The command form of comer is come. And the command form of pensar is piensa. Okay, the verbs hacer, poner, tener, venir, salir, decir, ser, ir, and estar are all going to be irregular in the positive 2 form, command form. So our commands for these verbs are haz, pon, ten, ven, sal, di, se, ve, este. With ve, we're going to need to use context to decide if we're using ir or ver, because those 2 verbs have the same command form. So to form negative 2 commands, we use the to form of the verb in the present subjunctive, and then we put no in front of the verb form. So for example, contestar as a negative command is no contestes. Poner, no pongas. abrir, no abras. Notice with poner, because of the subjunctive, I've got to keep that G all the way through because it was in the yo form. We can also give indirect commands in Spanish, and we create an indirect command by using que and a present subjunctive. And when we use this formation, we put pronouns before the verb in both positive and negative constructions. So our English equivalent to this would be let or have him or her or them do something. Sometimes I hope is kind of suggested in the translation. So for example, we have que pase, have him come in. Que espere, let her wait. Que me llamen, have them call me. Que no se lo dé, don't let him give it to them. So these are more generalized. They're given about a person rather than directly to that person. We can add subject pronouns to indirect commands just to emphasize who we're talking about. So for example, we can say, que lo haga él, let him do it. Que salga ella, let her go out or let her leave. Que nos ayuden ellos, have them help us. Que no se quedan ellas, don't let them stay. Specifically talking about the girls. We can also form a command in Spanish just by using the infinitive of a verb. And you'll see this most especially in newspaper ads that are advertising for jobs, in recipes, notices, and instructions on how to do things. So for example, you might see enviar historial con fotografía a, send resume with photograph to, interesados llamar al teléfono, interested persons call, secar las berenjenas, pasarlas por harina y freírlas en aceite hirviendo. Dry the eggplants, dip them into flour, and fry them in boiling oil. The infinitive is also used instead of the command form when you want to convey formality and or politeness. The English equivalent of this would be asking someone to please do something versus just giving them an order. So for example, you could say, favor de llamarme mañana. Please call me tomorrow. The please is implied. You don't need to have por favor written there. Tenga la bondad de sentarse. Please sit down. Haga el favor de firmar el documento. Please sign the paper. So we're going to look now at how we use our different pronouns with our command forms. So the position of our pronouns, reflexive, indirect, direct, will depend on whether the command we're using is positive or negative. And this is going to apply to all of our command forms. So when you have more than one pronoun in a sentence, they're going to follow a specific order, and the order doesn't change, whether it's positive, negative, or whatever command form you have. You're never going to need to use all three pronouns in the same sentence, though. So our order of pronouns goes reflexive, indirect, direct. So you want to remember the word rid when you're trying to remember the order that pronouns go. So our position of pronouns will be different with positive commands and with negative commands. So with positive commands, we're going to attach our pronouns to the end of the command, and then we add an accent. So for example, we have tráigamela, sentémonos, hazlo. The accent mark, you start at the last vowel and you count back 3 vowels, and that's where you would put the accent mark. So if you look at hazlo, you don't need one because you only have 2 vowels. If you look at sentémonos, you start at the O of nos, which is 1, count back 3, and that's where the accent goes. With a verb like tráigamela, that's a little bit different because traer has an irregular yo form. Okay, but in a situation where you add both pronouns, you had 2, start with the first one and use that vowel as vowel number 1. So with negative commands, we put our pronouns between no and the negative command form. So you would say, no me la traiga, no nos sentemos, no lo hagas. And these rules apply no matter what command form you're using. So let's do a real brief review of what our different pronouns are and what they mean. So let's start with our direct object pronouns. Our direct object pronouns in Spanish are me, te, lo, la, nos, los, and las. Me means me, te means you, lo can mean him or it, and it's referring to masculine singular objects. La means her or it, referring to feminine singular objects. Nos means us. Los means them, masculine and plural, and that can be people or things. And las means them, feminine plural, referring to people or objects. Our indirect object pronouns in Spanish are me, te, le, nos, and les. So me means to me, te means to you, le can mean to you, to him, or to her, nos means to us, and les means to them or to y'all. And lastly, let's take a look at our reflexive pronouns. So our reflexive pronouns are me, te, se, and nos. Me means myself, te means yourself, se can mean himself, herself, yourself, yourselves, or themselves, and nos means ourselves.